Welcome to FPB's Meet the Candidates. This Cable 10 series allows you, the viewer and the voter, to get a closer look at the candidates that we have running for our offices that you will have the opportunity to vote for on November 6th. Today, our guest is Judge Pamela Goodwine, and she is running for the Kentucky Court of Appeals, 5th Appellate District, Division 1. Welcome, Pamela. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Kathy.
I thought maybe we'd just start out with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, Kathy, hi. I was born and raised in Youngstown, Ohio. I moved to Lexington in 1979, but I moved to Lexington as a court stenographer. I've always wanted to be a judge since I was 16 years old. And how that came about was I was involved in a school project. And I had mentioned to my instructor that I was interested in the legal profession, and all of the students had to go out into the field and interview someone in the profession that they were interested in. And so I walked into the Mahoney County Courthouse in Youngstown, Ohio, and I saw no one that looked like me. And in fact, there were no women, there were no African Americans, and the mood was just very derogatory. And so I went back home and I told my parents that I wanted to enter the legal profession and I wanted to become a judge. My parents always instilled in me that I could do and be whatever I wanted to do and be. They were very, very instrumental in my life, encouraging me from a very early age that with a great work ethic and with faith, I could do and be anything I wanted to do and be. But what makes them really, really special is that at the ages of 58 and 56, they adopted newborns. I was 3 days old when they took me in, and then went on to adopt another infant because they didn't want to raise me by myself. They had raised their children. Wow. And what love and encouragement and inspiration that was to me. And early on in my life, they continued to instill in me that you have to work for what you want, that they would provide me with what I needed, but that anything else I had to work for.
Sure.
And tragedy struck at a very early age. I lost my dad to lung cancer right after I graduated from high school. So I'm preparing to go away to college. I'm preparing the summer of '78 after I graduated to go to Carnegie Mellon. I had a 4-year scholarship. And unfortunately, I forfeited that to stay home to take care of my dad. He had a 6-month prognosis, and he lived pretty much to the day, 6 months to the day.
Wow.
But while I was taking care of him, I knew with forfeiting my scholarship, I would have to put myself through school. And so I did that by going to ITT Tech, and I got an associate degree in court stenography. And on the day I graduated, I got a job offer in Lexington, Kentucky. And that is what brought me to Kentucky.
Very cool.
Excellent.
So some people may not know, what are the responsibilities of the appellate court and if a judge on the appellate court?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Judges on the Court of Appeals review decisions of the trial court. I've been a trial judge now for 19 years. Decisions that we make either pre-trial, at trial, or post-trial can be reviewed by an appellate panel. If a litigant is unhappy with a decision that the trial court makes, they can file a notice of appeal. Now, our Court of Appeals is made up of 14 judges. We have 7 appellate districts in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and so there are 2 judges elected from each of those 7 appellate districts. We are in the 5th appellate district. There are 3 judge panels that decide any case that is taken up on appeal. 2 of the 3 judges have to agree on any decision that is handed down. And once the decision is handed down, it may be published or unpublished, but it provides the trial court with guidance on 1, whether their decision was affirmed, 2, whether their decision was reversed, if it was reversed, why it was reversed, where the error was, and what they expect the trial judge to do.
Okay. Well, it's a lot of responsibility.
A lot of responsibility, absolutely.
So why don't you share with us the experience that you have that qualifies you for those responsibilities?
I think that I am the best candidate for this position based on my breadth and depth of knowledge on the trial court. Again, I've served as a trial judge for 19 years. And during the course of that 19 years, I have tried every type of case that can come into the Fayette Circuit Court. while every circuit judge has the same type of jurisdiction, they have not had the experience of trying those cases. So for example, I've tried class action cases, I've tried mass construction cases, I've tried mass tort litigation, car accident cases, and most of all, capital murder cases. I have tried more cases than any other judge in the 5th Appellate District, and more capital murder cases than any other judge in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Oh. Based on that 19 years experience, that very depth and broad knowledge of every type of case, as well as the administrative responsibilities, because I'm now the Chief Regional Circuit Judge for the Fayette County region. And that separates me, and the administrative responsibilities I've also gained, being chief, will come into play as part of a judge on the Court of Appeals.
Okay. So how long is a term for?
8 years.
It's 8 years.
It's 8 years, but this election is to fill an unexpired term.
Okay.
That was vacated by Justice Van Meter, who ran in 2016 for the Supreme Court.
I see.
So he left the term open. The term will actually expire in 2022. Governor Bevin made his appointment up until the election on November 6th.
I see. Okay. So do you think judges have an obligation to improve public understanding of the courts? And if so, how should they carry out that obligation?
I absolutely do think that judges have an obligation to inform citizens of how the court system works. I got involved in that at a very early on in my career. Mm-hmm. I was a district court judge when I was asked by the African American Studies Department at the University of Kentucky to teach a class. And I gladly accepted that responsibility and taught a class called Understanding the Judicial Process. And I explained to my students, I taught undergraduate students, about the process of going through the court system, what the jurisdictions were at each level. There are people who don't understand that there are 4 levels of the judiciary in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. There's the district court bench, which handles misdemeanor cases, your small claims cases, forcible detainer cases, probate, things like that. Mm-hmm. And then the Court of General Jurisdiction, which is the circuit court where I am, which handles your felony cases, where the punishment is 1 year in prison up to and including the death penalty, mm-hmm. and civil litigation. There is also a level of circuit court that is family court, where the jurisdiction is just family court cases. Okay. And then, as we discussed, the Court of Appeals, which would review cases from the trial court level. And then above that is our Kentucky Supreme Court. Whenever we have jury orientation, whenever I'm in charge of jury orientation, we have about 200 of our citizens come in for jury orientation. And I try to explain to them at that time what and how they will be involved in the judicial process and how it could not work without them. Explaining to them what their role is in the judicial process, and again, how important that is. Explaining the difference between the grand jury and the petit jury, because most people don't understand that. Mm-hmm. And then what the functions of each of those bodies are and how important it is to the judicial system.
Okay. Well, this is your career is in law and in the justice mm-hmm. system, but you're having to run in an election to get this job.
Absolutely.
Do you consider yourself a politician?
I am not a politician. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in I'm a registered independent. I believe that politics and political affiliation should not come into play when it comes to our rulings, when it comes to the decisions that we have to make. Unfortunately, some judges can't separate the two. And I think it's very important for us, and we are mandated by judicial ethics on things that we can and cannot say. There was a time when we couldn't even address our party affiliation, although that has been ruled unconstitutional. Mm-hmm. I don't think that politics has a role in the judiciary and should not have a role in the judiciary. But of course, we have to run. We have to
so how do you find that balance
elected
between being an independent judge and an elected official?
Well, I've done it. I've been on the bench for 19 years. This is now my 3rd race. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I find from the people that I interact with is, one, you are the same. You have been Pam ever since you came to Lexington. the title of judge hasn't given you, hasn't made you different. You haven't gotten judge-itis is the term that they have given to me. And I talk to people face to face. They know my compassion. They know that I bring a different vantage point to the bench. And what I mean by that is, I tell people, one, I was born and raised in the inner city. I had to work hard for what I got. There were no lawyers in my family. There were no politicians in my family. I didn't know anybody that could get me connected, okay? I also, at a very early age, 6 months after my dad died, my mother was murdered in Ohio. And so I had to deal with the legal system from a victim's point of view. I had to deal with judges and lawyers and attorneys in prosecuting my mother's murderer, who happened to be a family member. And the difficulty with that aspect of it was interesting at best. One, it was in Ohio. My uncle pled mentally incompetent to stand trial, was committed to a mental institution, released within 90 days to kill again, recommitted, and died of natural causes. Never prosecuted, never served a day in jail. And coming back to Lexington as a court stenographer, still wanting to make a difference in my community and in the legal profession, because I knew I had something to give back. I knew that with that experience and with that understanding of the judicial system from both sides gave me a different vantage point. That's what I share with the citizens of the Commonwealth of Kentucky as I'm out on the campaign trail. I meet jurors who have been in my courtroom who tell me what a wonderful experience that was. I've met defendants on the campaign trail who said, despite sending me to prison, you taught me a very valuable lesson. I've met witnesses who say, I appreciate how you handled my loved one's trial. I appreciate everything that you did when I sat in your courtroom. That is what I am running on. Not because I'm politically connected, or not because I've had someone spend money or got me to the position or the place where I am.
Okay, great. Let's get a little philosophical for a minute. What do you perceive as the greatest obstacles to justice, if any?
The greatest obstacles to justice is money, I think. I see a big disparity in representations for the underprivileged. I see lack of accessibility to justice, which is unfortunate, because everyone, regardless of their race or socioeconomic status, their gender, their sexual orientation, should feel like they have an opportunity to be heard when they believe that they've been wronged or a crime has been committed against them.
Well, I was going to ask you if you believe that all citizens have adequate access to legal help.
Again, based on their financial statuses, sometimes I do see a disparity. We do have agencies out there, the Department of Public Advocacy, Legal Aid of the Bluegrass. We have entities out there that do represent the underprivileged or those who don't have financial means or resources. But our resources are so strapped. We don't have enough of the available resources to allow our citizens to have the full access to justice that they need and they so well deserved. And another example is with expungements. Those who have served their time, those who have paid their debt to society, who want to get a fresh start, who want to make a difference in society, face a $500 application fee just to get their records expunged. And so we as judges have the opportunity, with the right information and affidavits, to waive some of that, allow them to apply in forma pauperis to get that application fee waived. But initially, that's what they're confronted with.
Okay. Do you ever wake up in the middle of the night and thinking about a case and thinking, maybe I should have done something differently?
I really don't. I don't take my decisions home with me.
Okay.
I live a pretty stress-free life, and I do that. I do wake up in the middle of the night, but it's at 3:15. That's when I wake up and get up to get ready to jazzercise. I'm a fitness instructor.
I read that about you.
Yes, absolutely. And so my day starts at 3:15.
Okay.
I am out the door at 4:50, and I am at the center by 5:15, ready to start class at 5:30.
I see. What has been your greatest accomplishment in your legal career, would you consider?
Making a difference.
Yeah.
Making a difference in my community. And that is what I hear when I go out into the community of Lexington, serving not only on the bench, but in various other aspects in my church. I'd like preschool, kindergarten, Sunday school classes, VBS, but more importantly, volunteering in different areas within the community as well. But I feel my personal satisfaction is making a difference in my community. And let me say, you asked the question whether there was any case any time in my 19 years, and I have to admit that there was one. And I don't really have time to go into all of the facts, but there were 4 defendants, one of whom was a female, who was clueless about what was going on and in the wrong place at the wrong time, and was charged like everyone else was. And when it came time to do jury instructions, her attorney wanted a misdemeanor instruction included. And I thought, why are you asking for that? There's no way she would be convicted of this based on the facts of this case. And she was. And I thought, that is absolutely, totally wrong.
Yeah.
And that this needs to be fixed. She does not need to go to prison. She has 2 small kids. It was non-probatable, and she, based on the sentence, the verdict, was sentenced. And I talked to the prosecutor, I talked to the defendant's attorney afterwards. We all agreed that that was not just.
Yeah.
And the Commonwealth attorney in the case at the time, as well as the defense attorney and I, agreed that a new trial for her was warranted, and then they would make an arrangement or an agreement to negotiate a plea that was appropriate under those circumstances. That is what tough but fair means.
Right.
That's also in my campaign materials, tough but fair.
Yeah.
Understanding that sentences are based on facts of each specific case.
Okay.
And the law mandates specific sentences under certain circumstances. And judges are mandated by law to follow the sentences as mandated. Probation is mandated in all cases, except in which it's prohibited. And there are very narrow cases in which it's prohibited. Understanding that and understanding the facts behind the sentences and the sentences that are imposed, rather than looking at just blanket statistics, makes all the difference in the world, because blanket statistics mean nothing. They tell us nothing about the underlying facts and underlying sentences and whether the judge actually followed the law under those circumstances.
Okay. While serving on the bench, do you believe you have a role in bringing important legal or judicial issues before the public or legislature? And why or why not?
Well, the legislature makes the laws. The judge's role is to interpret those laws and apply those laws to the facts. Now, interestingly, there are times when the legislation as written isn't applied or cannot be applied and have the effect as intended. There are times when legislation is written incorrectly, and we as judges have to determine, one, whether or not it's constitutional. So in that sense, we are educating the public and the legislature about certain legislation. Having tried the number of death penalty cases that I've tried over the course of 15 years, I have seen the fact patterns. I have seen the economic impact of those cases on our taxpayers. And so after maybe the 45th death penalty case that I had been assigned in my division, I thought that perhaps it was time for me to educate the public about the economic impact of capital murder cases on the Commonwealth of Kentucky and the taxpayers in our community. And so I did that.
Yeah.
And I do think judges have that obligation when it's apparent that legislation as written isn't having the effect that the legislators intended, and bringing that to their attention. Now it's up to them to change the legislation based on the representations that we've made. Judges are often called to speak on Capitol Hill in Washington and also in Frankfurt about certain issues and the impacts that the laws as written have.
Okay. What is your general judicial philosophy?
Well, my general judicial philosophy is to interpret the Constitution as it's intended to be interpreted. That all people, all individuals, all citizens are created equally. They're entitled to equal access to justice. They are entitled to be heard. And it is the judge's role to interpret the laws fairly and to administer justice equally and consistently.
Okay.
That's my general philosophy.
So what is your vision for the future of the judicial system? Do you think there are changes that need to be made? Specifically, are there processes that could be improved in the Court of Appeals system?
Absolutely. In a perfect world, we would have more judges at every level. I think that would improve the length of time it takes to get cases heard. We, the judiciary, through Chief Justice Minton, did undertake a study, a time study, to determine which circuits needed the help the most. But again, in a perfect world, we would have more judges at every level. At the Court of Appeals, I do think that there are issues that need to be addressed, and I believe that I can help address those issues. And that is inconsistent decisions among the panels. When a panel issues a decision and it's published, it is law for the trial courts to follow. When panel 1 issues a ruling one way and panel 2 issues a ruling in opposite of panel 1, and they're both published opinions, the trial courts are left with, okay, what do we do? How do we interpret this? And so I think having a repository of rulings, a repository of cases on the Court of Appeals, and I think having the 14 judges on the Court of Appeals simply talk to each other, improve the lines of communication, discuss difficult issues. Because as you know, with Facebook and social media coming on the scene, we have had to address some pretty unique issues having to do with the legal questions that involve Facebook discovery request when someone wants the defendant's Facebook pages or social media accounts produced. The plaintiff ask for what they believe to be relevant to the case, and the other side objects. So case law is constantly evolving based on social norms, based on the progression that our society makes. And so judges have to understand that, and particularly at the Court of Appeals level, have to make sure that their decisions are consistent and informative for the trial court and instructive in their opinions when they come down, letting the trial court know what they expect of them.
Okay. Do you think the current system for disciplining lawyers and judges is effective, and why or why not?
The system for disciplining lawyers and judges are different.
Okay.
So the Bar Association, the Kentucky Bar Association, addresses disciplinary matters as they relate to lawyers.
Okay.
And so anyone, a litigant, another lawyer, or a judge can file a complaint against an attorney, and that is handled through the Bar Association. They investigate, they review it, they give the lawyer an opportunity to respond. Complaints against judges is handled with the Judicial Conduct Commission. Again, a complaint can be initiated with that committee. It can be anonymous. The committee then reviews the complaint, sends it to the judge who's affected, determine whether a response is necessary or not, investigate, and then conducts a hearing. And so I think it's effective. I haven't heard anyone complain about the process.
Okay.
So I think it's an effective process.
Well, we're going to wrap it up here.
Okay.
What are your goals if elected?
Okay. Well, my goal has always been to ascend the judicial hierarchy. I started at the bottom in the district court, worked there effective and efficiently for 4 years, was then elected to the circuit court bench where I've served the citizens of Fayette County for 15 years. I'm now the chief administrative judge, the chief regional circuit judge. My goal is to be elected to the Court of Appeals I believe I'm the best qualified candidate for that position. I want to carry those skills to the Court of Appeals. And after so many years, and I don't have a set number, I eventually want to be elected to the Kentucky Supreme Court.
Okay. Well, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to look in that camera and directly address our voters. Tell them why you're the best candidate and ask for their vote.
Thank you. I am Judge Pamela Goodwine, a candidate for the Kentucky Court of Appeals. I believe that I am the best candidate for this position because 19 years of service as a trial judge has given me the broadest and deepest knowledge and experience, having tried every possible type of case that a circuit judge can try. Although all those judges have the same jurisdiction, not all of them have the experience. Again, trying more capital cases than any other judge in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. I believe judges should be independent. I believe that they should have the integrity, the determination, and the drive to do the job for which they are elected. That is why I believe I am the best candidate for this position. I am Judge Pamela Goodwine, and I respectfully ask for your vote on November 6th.
Thank you. So if people want to find out more about you, where can they go?
They can go to my website, www.judgegoodwine.com.
Excellent.
I have a website. I have Facebook. You can follow me on Instagram as well as Twitter.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you, Kathy.
I know that our viewers really appreciate hearing directly from the candidates.
Absolutely.
So it means the world to them.
Absolutely. I really appreciate the opportunity to come as well.
Absolutely. So to the viewers, I want to remind you to go vote on November 6th. And when you're done voting, go home, tune it in to Channel 10, where we're going to have live election coverage coming directly from the county clerk's office. So check us out. It's election season, so that means it's time to get informed. After you get informed, then go voice your choice. Vote on November 6th. That's all for this time of Meet the Candidates. We'll see you next time.